The moment I saw her uniform, I was in awe. And the moment the sentry at the gate, he saluted like, "Jai Hind, ma'am." I was like, "Meko yahi banna hai. I have to become this." As a doctor in army, it is very, very different from what you see in civil. I got a patient, 19-year-old girl who came in shock. And the moment I ask only one question to these girls when they come to my clinic, what time do you sleep? Even if a woman comes to me who comes with unintended pregnancy, I wouldn't blame the partner. Patient who has a cancer, if we are just talking about her survival, that's not enough. If she gets infertile after a cancer, after radiotherapy and all, what sense does it make? When I was diagnosed my cancer, I used to do my self-test examination and I could feel a lump in my right axilla. And within 15 days, there was a lump in the breast. And he used to wince with pain because I used to check his sugars and I would say, "Hey Bhagwan, iski bimari mujhe do." And I manifested my cancer. I had very beautiful hair before cancer. And this thing was noticed by my son. He just took me to the washroom and he just shaved off my hair. In 2022, there was a statistic where globally 25% women are not able to make their own choices as far as health is concerned. Globally.
Hi everyone, I'm Sakshi Bakshi, Director of EPIA, Egg Preservation Institute of Asia, a femtech venture. I'm also a public speaker and your host, and you're listening to She Does It All. On this podcast, we bring you real conversations with high-achieving women who are experts in their fields, and we learn from them how they truly do it all. Today, I'm incredibly honored to welcome someone who embodies resilience, leadership, and reinvention. We have with us Dr. Gunjan Malhotra, a retired Army gynecologist with over 24 years of service in the Indian Army Medical Corps. She's a cancer survivor, a TEDx speaker, Mrs. India Subcontinent 2024, and the director of Gyneca, a wellness clinic focused on preventive care, cancer awareness, and much more. She is truly a woman of many dimensions, a doctor, a leader, a survivor, and a role model. Dr. Gunjan, thank you so much for being here today.
Jai Hind, everybody. And thank you, Sakshi, for such a beautiful introduction of mine. I'm really humbled.
Glad. So we had so many questions that we want to ask you, but in your own words, you want to start with the most initial question, that what inspired you to become a doctor?
I'm the 16th doctor in my family. And as you see me, usually we say doctors are the ones who are brilliant. They study a lot. I was a very, very average student. And it was my mother who was very, very strict with me, who was the one actually, she forced me into medicine. I was to become a Kathak dancer, but she forced me to become a doctor. And once I was in my class 11th, I myself felt that I would be going into medicine. And that was because I used to go to her clinic very frequently. I used to visit her and I loved the way she used to see her patients. She had so much of empathy, so much of love for her patients, so much of dedication. Once I went into medical school, I really liked the idea of talking to women in the labor room, patients, obstetric patients, old ladies. I really enjoyed talking to them. I felt a lot for, even then, the cancer patients, the menopausal ladies in the OPD. So I wanted to become a gynecologist after that. So my home's environment was so that my mother, my father, my brother, they would be talking only medicine. Yes. So it just grew on me.
Truly, I think being a doctor is definitely, I think, one of the most noble professions.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
No matter what you say, I think there's no better or direct impact that you can make on any life.
I'm sure there are other professions for women nowadays where you can make an impact. But in this profession, you're dealing with lives. You can't go wrong.
It's also very interesting because you were also in the army. And what prompted you, or how did you get into the army? What made you go to the army?
I really believe in destiny and divinity. The path that was carved for me, it just happened for me, honestly. And I got commissioned in 99, September. And Kargil war got over in July. While Kargil war was going on, me and my husband, we decided to opt for something where we could be together. So we had just got married about 1.5 years and we didn't want to go anywhere else. We wanted to do something where we would be together. And initially in army, they post you together. we applied for a short service and we got selected. Both of us got selected, and our first posting was Kasoli. So we almost had a honeymoon posting there. Little did we know that it's not that easy. And also, while I was thinking what I should do next, because I did my post graduation in FMC Pune. Later on, after joining army, after my short service and then permanent commission, army gives you a lot of opportunities to women to excel. And that time, while I was thinking what to do, I happened to go to one of my relatives who was posted at a military hospital as a doctor, and she had just joined army. We had no one in army. And the moment I saw her uniform, I was in awe. And the moment the sentry at the gate, he saluted like, Jai Hind, ma'am. I was like, "Meko yahi banna hai. I have to become this." And it was amazing, it's not just the glamour which is attached to the uniform. I think it just grows on you. And I'm not saying this because I was in army for 24 years, but once you wear uniform, lot of things change in your mind.
What, like what?
As a doctor in army, it is very, very different from what you see in civil. We get to go to the far-flung areas where you're seeing patients from the civil background. I got a patient, 19-year-old girl, who came in shock. She had a burst ectopic and she had hemoperitoneum. And these are the kind of patients which are actually challenging with restricted resources like the blood, the facilities. We were able to manage as a team and get her back.
Truly.
So these kind of things you will not see in civil.
100%.
And then in army, basically it's a life where we believe more in prevention. So if you see most of the army officers and sepoys and other ranks, they will be fit. And you know why it's that way? Because we have our annual medicals every year. In civil, if I tell any of the ladies, they हर साल अपनी blood test करा लो, अपने बाकी test करा लो, they will just have an ostrich mentality. That अगर कराऊंगी कुछ निकला तो फिर क्या होगा? That's the mentality. So army में that basic difference is there.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you see so many young girls having PCOD and metabolic disorders. And the moment I ask only one question to these girls when they come to my clinic, what time do you sleep? And they smile.
Right.
So they hardly sleep.
Actually, that's true.
So these are very, very basic things which if you improve in your lifestyle, I think things can be much better. You'll be a much healthier and a happier person.
You're right, because I think PCOS now has become so common and it's a more of a lifestyle condition than anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, like you said, sleep is one factor to fix in terms of PCOS. Anything else that should be sort of?
I think there are a lot of things, and if you ask any 18, 19-year-old, they list it for us.
Yeah.
The momos and the pizzas that they eat, the eating times are different, the kind of stress they have, the kind of things people are indulging into nowadays, be it alcohol, especially the weekend binging, or vaping, which is supposed to be a very cool thing nowadays. No, that's not really cool. So all these things, and not exercising at all, not moving their bodies at all, not going for a walk. There's something known as forest bathing, which if you do, say about 20 minutes, it reduces your cortisol levels and you are much better.
Right.
So it's all about cortisol nowadays. And it's just the drinks which you get in the market, the Red Bull, kids are having all that.
Yeah.
I don't remember in the last 30, 40 years, I think we used to have a glass of milk every day. So things have changed. And that is why we are heading towards a society where in next maybe 10 years, by 2030, 35, we will be having chronic illnesses and cancers in much more percentage of people less than 50 years.
पहले ज़माने में हम इतना दूध पीते थे, खाना बेटर था, pollution इतना नहीं था, and because of all the lifestyle factors plus all the processed junk that we've been eating, there's a rise in chronic illnesses as such. So, and social media is enough that you know everything, what you should be doing, what you should be eating, what you should be drinking. But why aren't people able to follow it? Or, especially like if you had to advise women, what would be the right way to manage life in an era like this?
I think stop seeing Google reviews, stop going to Insta, stop going to your phone, just restrict it for 1 hour screen time a day. Read read more about things, read more about recommendations, read more scientific things that are happening. And I feel women need to take responsibility of their lives, whether it is their profession, whether it is their health. Even if a woman comes to me who comes with unintended pregnancy, I wouldn't blame the partner. I think you need to know what contraception you need to use. Similarly, if someone knows that it is going to take, nowadays every lady is working, fighting to grow. It's rather fighting, because you'll have male counterparts who will pull you down. They will say that she gets a nowadays you're getting a menstrual leave also in certain places, or she gets pregnant, she goes off for 6 months, which every woman faces. These are microaggressions. But she needs to understand, if she may face infertility in future, she needs to preserve her eggs. That's a basic thing. A lot of people don't know that.
You're right. Yeah.
So I feel, and in a society like, I go to a charitable hospital in Karol Bagh, there almost 80-90% women which I see are anemic. And the reason is, they khana hote hain jo paroste hain, food. They give it to everybody at home, and in the end, whatever is left, they take it. I always tell them, make it a rule that like आप भगवान के लिए, देवी के लिए परोसते हैं खाना, वैसे सारा खाना परोस के साइड पे रख दीजिए वो प्लेट. And then you feed the rest of the people in your house. If you are taking good nutritious diet, you are healthy. And if you are healthy, you'll be able to take care of the others. So I think it is just about taking the responsibility in all spheres.
Got a very interesting point. Taking care of others, and I think most Indian women do that. They're very selfless. कि बाकियों का ध्यान पहले रखना है, then later on, you take care of yourself. You come last on priority list. Your kids first, your parents first, your husband, spouse, whatever your partner, and then last would be, you. And I think that's an important change that women need to start putting themselves first.
Absolutely.
And like, especially when you talk about biological timelines as well, a lot of women now realize too late. And that's why egg freezing, as you said, is, but do you see that often in your practice? That
Absolutely.
coming to you?
I do see that thing in my practice, whether it is a assisted reproductive technique. The ideas that people have are really weird. They don't want to go through a IVF. They'll go through umpteen number of cycles. They will just go to some medical officer or someone in the civil who doesn't have an idea. It's such a scientific thing. And if someone needs a IVF, she needs a IVF. Why do you have to delay it? But they'll go for ovulation induction, umpteen ovulation induction. Imagine taking so much of clomiphene and later on risking your life for ovarian cancer.
Right.
Is it worth it? So it is very good to go to social media and see Insta and other things. But I think reading about the subject would be a great idea. Women who are educated definitely should open the sites where you will understand what is cryopreservation, what is IVF, how it can be done, whether it is painful or not. A lot of patients come with this thing that it is very painful, and the 6-7 months of pain.
Well, that's what you're saying, right? Like, a lot of people, when they read also, so they end up reading all of these parts where people are talking about how bad it is, how painful it is.
Yes.
So people also always stress more on the negative of it.
Absolutely. But then institutions like yours, I think, are doing a great job by these myths are getting cancelled because of this. And I think this awareness has to go down in the line. In a patient who has a cancer, if we are just talking about her survival, that's not enough. If she gets infertile after a cancer, after radiotherapy and all, what sense does it make? So the treatment has to be holistic. The awareness has to be total.
Right. And I think that's what I think you bring me to the next part of the conversation, where people actually do see cancer as the end of everything. And you're a cancer survivor. And can you tell me your own words? How was your journey? And if you don't mind,
Yeah, no, not at all. When I was diagnosed my cancer, I used to do my self-breast examination, and I could feel a lump in my right axilla. And within 15 days, there was a lump in the breast. When it got diagnosed, I was not scared. I was in that mode. a mindset of a warrior because I had gone through something very, very shattering about few years back. That was in 2013 when my 10-year-old son, he was diagnosed as a case of juvenile diabetes. So after his 10th birthday, he was bedwetting. We had to get him back on track. I was actually shattered mentally. I think everything is such a mental game. And I started manifesting what I got later on, that was cancer. I used to get up in the morning, prick him, and he used to wince in pain because I used to check his sugars. And I would say, hey, Bhagwan, iski bimari mujhe de do. And I manifested my cancer. So when I actually got diagnosed as a lobular carcinoma of breast, third stage, I was only thinking of how I will get out of this, how I have to heal, what are the things I have to do. This 7-8 months of all the treatment, I have to just, get out. So that was the thing I felt during the cancer when it was diagnosed. I got my treatment at Army Hospital, RNR Research and Referral, which is the apex hospital of the country. And I retired. I, in fact, became a veteran from there only. While I was going through this entire process of treatment, that was a time when COVID was there. It was 2020. So there were a lot of challenges, mental, emotional, physical, which I also felt. And out of that, I think there are two main challenges which I actually felt really broke me a bit. I had very beautiful hair before cancer, and I knew that my hair is going to fall. It started falling after the second chemo. I cut it very short. I had a crew cut. It wouldn't stop. And family में होता है कि उसको बुरा ना लगे तो they fast them, they'll say नहीं नहीं कुछ नहीं गिर रहा, सब ठीक ठाक है. I went into complete depression. For the next 3-4 days, I stopped talking to everybody. And this thing was noticed by my son. He just took me to the washroom and he just shaved off my head. He says, अब जो जितना रोना है रो, इसको खत्म करो, build your resilience and fight it. And I'm telling you, this is nirvana. We are running after glitz, glamour, beauty. Is it important? No.
Not
It's
at all.
important to be alive.
Alive, yes.
It's just important to be how it comes first. And there used to be times in the evenings when I would be sitting alone. And because in COVID times, people were dying. I used to actually wonder whether I'll die of cancer or COVID. And in the morning, I used to wake up to sun. I don't think there'll be anyone more grateful to be alive. The second challenge which I actually faced was I have always been a gymmer and runner with the troops and all those things, with the backpack and all that. But how I would face a chemo was a big challenge because I knew that my energy levels will go down. That's when I realized that I should start doing yoga and meditation. I'd always thought कि 70-80 की होके करूँगी meditation क्या करना भगवान को याद करके. But then I started off. And believe me, I used to do this Vyasa University की एक meditation है, mind sound resonance technique. I still do it. I still practice it. I should do it twice a day. And for the entire period of my chemo, I hardly took maybe a paracetamol or two. That's all.
That's it.
My basic thing about cancer, which I learned, was that you have to stay consistent in whichever challenge you're facing, and you have to keep moving.
Did you always manifest or imagine a life after cancer?
Absolutely. But then there was a phase just after my radiation was over from Max. मेरे mentor हैं Colonel Tangri. He's a gynec oncologist, well-known gynec oncologist, and I always name him in all my podcasts. So I went up to him. He was my HOD that time in Army Hospital. And you know what happens when you are going through such a phase? What I felt is we become lazy. हमें लगता है छोड़ो यार काम क्या करना है. It's okay, let it be. You have a fear also कि अब तो कैंसर हो गया, आप कैसे काम करोगे? I went up to him and I told him, sir, कैंसर हो गया. कहते ट्रीटमेंट हो गया, it's over. Now don't think about it at all. You just get back to work. Believe me, Sakshi, I used to work 4 hours. एक गंजी लड़की OT में काम कर रही है. And there have been times when I had a vasovagal. I've fallen. People have actually helped me. I bumped my head. I would get up. My entire team was always there. Colonel Tangri and all my friends, all my colleagues. They helped me to come out of it. And by the end of, before I was to leave army in November 23, I was working about 10 to 12 hours in the OT and doing my work. For they say work is worship. For me, work was healing. So it's nowadays I think 1 in 8 people are getting cancers. It's not a big deal. Once you've gone through your surgery, gone through everything, you will come out of it. And start working, start doing things which you need to do. Have a purpose in life.
Have a purpose is being very.
You know, when I was going through this, I have an entire presentation where I have photographs and all. I used to say, जब मैं निकलूंगी ना, मैं सबको दिखाऊंगी और सबको बताऊंगी कि क्या-क्या करना चाहिए और क्या-क्या नहीं करना चाहिए. I want everybody. I'm connected with so many cancer patients all across the globe. They just need comforting. They just need that empathy. You know, there are times when जब तुम cancer patient हो तो तुम strong हो जाओ. Be strong. No. Anyone who goes through any challenge, it is cancer, it is infertility, it is any chronic illness. I'm telling you, even diabetes, juvenile diabetes, which Rohan has. I think everybody gets vulnerable. It is okay to be vulnerable. But आपके आसपास को जो environment है, आपके parents हैं, आपके friends हैं, those people have to be empathic. Yeah. That's very important. And this goes for even infertility. It is very painful for, imagine a woman who is and you know, the problem is that अगर ये जो periods की cycle होती है 10-10 दिन की होती तो फिर भी ठीक था. Every month you go through the same pain, you are thinking that you're getting pregnant and then you bleed. It's very painful. And some of them will stress so much कि period ही नहीं आएगा but they're still not pregnant. It's just what goes through their mind. And then in a social issue, if people keep telling you you're not getting pregnant, you're not doing, I mean, it's just really painful. It's very painful. So I think this awareness has to go through. Everything will happen. Just stay consistent, have that patience, and just keep moving on. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel.
And you're right, the support system matters so much. Even in, say, infertility, it's so important to talk to parents, your family around you. Also, because it's not just the couple who's going through it.
Absolutely.
So many people are
Absolutely.
influencing.
The caregivers. Imagine the cancer patient, your caregivers. They also need that support. Everything. Achha, one more thing which I think is very important once you've gone through a cancer is your follow-up. I have seen a few of my friends had relapse and they are no more. Two things which I would really insist on is, one, please do your self-breast examination. Every woman and even men who are at high risk should do their self-breast examination. Absolutely. Because during the times when I had cancer, we were 4 friends, out of which 2 of us used to do our self-breast examination and we are alive. Rest of them didn't do. They were in 4th stage. We lost them. Secondly, as far as cervical cancer is concerned, that is the second most common cancer in women. You must get a cervical cancer vaccination done for your children, both boys and girls. And
boys as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because HPV virus, that is the human papilloma virus, that not only affects the cervix, it can affect the male genitalia also.
So a lot of women also want to know, especially for cervical cancer, they recommend it before sexual activity. But can they take that vaccine even after?
Yes, women can take the vaccine up to 45 years and men definitely up to 26 years. That's the recommendation. But along with this, women should get their LBC, that is the liquid-based cytology screening, definitely done.
Okay.
So that, why we are actually insisting on this is because once human papilloma virus enters anybody's body, it is sexually transmitted. It stays in for 2 years. If your immune system is bad, then it keeps on affecting the cells of the cervix. And this takes about 7 to 10 years to become a very early cancer. So in these 7 to 10 years, if a screening is done, and we know that this virus is there, the changes are there, you catch the disease as early as possible and the patient will not die. It's 100% sure.
Right. Very important.
But if you've only got your screening done right.
And along with screening, do you recommend any other genetic testing, suppose for breast cancer?
Definitely. There is a panel of genetic tests for cancers. But the people who had a breast cancer, definitely their family members should get their BRCA1 and BRCA2 done. And other panels can also be done depending on what is the cancer.
Okay, okay. But just as a general advice to women at large, any other testing they should do for cancer specifically? No.
Nowadays, they do a lot of tumor markers like a CA125 and other tumor markers. That's really not required in the panel. Only if there is a suspicion of ovarian cancer or problems, there are symptoms of a patient, then only you should. Getting an anxiety out of a patient with extra investigation doesn't make it. But definitely, whether it is a lady or a man, they should get their annual medicals or annual checkups done. There are certain blood tests and urine tests which need to be done. Every year you must get it done. And in women who are above the age of 40, they should get their mammograms.
Mammograms.
But before 40, please do not get it done. If there's a suspicion, first a ultrasound is done because mammography there is a exposure to radiation, so that should be avoided.
Okay, good. And because we spoke so about cancer at length, especially for women, and a lot of cancer bodies do recommend fertility preservation before cancers. Do you see women who are coming to you for cancer? Anyone goes through fertility preservation? Do they think about it? Do oncologists recommend it?
I think cancer, if you think of cancer as such, it is very survival centric. It is not about preservation of the ovary, it's not about preservation of the breast, it's actually very important to a woman, whether it is the breast as an organ or ovary as an organ, everything is important. It affects her. So whenever a cancer patient comes, the care has to be completely holistic. She has to be given options. And I would urge the women to actually be aware. They should ask questions. They should ask questions. What is going to happen of my ovary? How many is there a way to preserve my ovum? And what are the modalities that are available? There is egg freezing, there's embryo freezing, there is everything that is available. So the women need to ask what are the things that are available, modalities that are available to preserve maybe the eggs. And you're talking of this, but definitely in a breast cancer scenario, I as a doctor was never offered reconstructive surgery. It could have been done in one go. All these things affect her mentally.
Exactly.
A loss of an organ, loss of ovum, loss of everything, it affects her.
Yes.
Although there are things available like a ovum donation, but who really wants a ovum donation? When you can preserve the egg and use it after years, in the bank.
Yes. Naturally.
And that's possible.
Exactly. Naturally, you would want to have your own biological kids if possible.
Absolutely.
And but yes, I think that time when you're diagnosed with cancer, I think it's such a fight or flight panic mode. And doctors are also just trying to need to survive that no one instinctively thinks of other parts.
Don't you think this should change?
That should change.
I think apart from having a dietitian, apart from having acupuncture guy, and all those things, yoga, I think this needs to be incorporated into any cancer center. This has to be done.
No, a very good point, and I hope this does come.
And now cancer should not be only for surviving because it is rising.
Exactly.
Please understand, if it is caught early, then you will survive.
Exactly.
But in the bargain, if you are losing something, it doesn't really make sense. So be aware of what are the modalities that are available.
True, true. People do get scared about the delay in treatment as such because a lot of oncologists would say, no, you have to rush first.
Yes, I read somewhere, I'm sorry to cut you on this. In 2022, there was a statistic where globally 25% women are not able to take their own, make their own choices as far as health is concerned. Globally. High time to wake up.
Exactly. And women only have to do it.
Absolutely.
No one else, but you have to be the one. That's what they say, right? Like while women are going through an empowerment phase, but men also need to know how to get disempower or, at least learn how to delegate.
I always say that we are not getting empowered. We are already empowered. We just need to recognize that how strong we are. That's all.
Exactly.
And each one of us is.
Yeah.
I also want to add one more thing. There is something as a gynecologist which I see very clearly is intimacy. The moment we talk about intimacy between a couple, it's a hush-hush. We are talking about sex. It is very important for a woman, for a man. especially the ones who are going through a tough time to produce a baby. I think that part has to be dealt.
Why is it so hush hush, do you think so?
I think our mindsets are like that. हमारे को बचपन में बताया जाता था, no, 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 don't talk about this. Don't talk about menstruation. Don't talk about menstrual hygiene. It's nonsense.
Exactly.
I think grow up, talk about things. The more the things are brought out, more awareness is spread, the things will be much better.
Right. Is it also that you can't be shown as vulnerable? Is it related to that, like where you think about intimacy, or completely separate as?
I think it's a thought process also. Vulnerability is there, but it's a thought process which needs to change.
When that brings us to the end of our, main conversation, now we have a quick rapid fire. First question: what's the most unexpected question a patient has ever asked you?
About 5 years back, before my cancer, there was this lady who used to come to the OPD very frequently, a menopausal lady. So she would every time barge into my OPD every 2 weeks. And she nearly proposed me for her son. She said कि आप मेरे बेटे से शादी कर लो. Then I told her I have a son of his age. I can't marry him. So it was, and then she said नहीं कि बहन होगी. मैंने कहा sorry, I have a brother. If you want, I can ask my brother.
Well, what a beautiful compliment. And I must say, totally,
No, but it was really funny. It was actually funny.
What's a red flag women should never ignore in a partner, especially when it comes to intimacy?
I think the fact he does not give self-respect.
Respect has to be the
Respect.
foundation.
I think the only one thing a partner needs to give the other one, not a woman or a man, it is a self-respect.
What's the funniest myth you have heard about women's bodies?
A lot of people say कि pregnancy के time पे papaya मत खाओ और pineapple मत खाओ, पर ऐसा कुछ होता नहीं है.
What's the most overrated health trends right now?
Overrated health trends, maybe having a lot of proteins, lot of gym proteins. Please do not adhere to that. They are not good. And maybe having expensive yoga bars or those kind of things. I somehow feel that all these things will have some kind of chemical inside them. So maybe you should go for fruits, vegetables.
What's one thing you're still learning as a woman?
There was a reel on Insta which said, I can live in Bombay city, I can live in Pune city, but I cannot live in toxicity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what's one thing you're still learning as a woman?
I think I learn from each experience, especially from my patients. I learn every patient of mine is different. Everyone goes through their kind of pain.
Last question: army life or civilian life? Which shaped you more?
Definitely army life. After mummy ke dando ke baad, army life is the one which actually shaped me. It disciplined me. It gave me a lot of resilience. And resilience is actually a muscle. You have to grow it. So army definitely treats you right to grow it. And other than that, having endurance, waking up on time, doing things on time. Army definitely. I actually feel that every child should get a opportunity to serve the country.
And thank you for your service. It's been a privilege talking to you here today, listening to your story, your journey. Any last message that you would want to leave the audience?
Thank you, Sakshi. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And I feel there are two things which I really want to stress on. One, a woman needs to take charge. She needs to ask questions about fertility, about her ovum, about what needs to be done. She needs to take charge of her responsibility of her health, everything about her.
Yes.
Secondly, what a cancer taught me, a challenge like cancer taught me was to always have this one word in mind always. And you know what it is? Gratitude. And there's a very nice thing you can do. It's known as gratitude alarm. And this will build your resilience. Believe me, it's a very easy thing. Looks like very easy. है, कैसे करेंगे? Every day at 9 p.m., put an alarm. Throughout the day, think of 3 things you're grateful for and be grateful for them in your mind. and do it for 21 days. The mind will be tuned in such a way that it'll start thinking positive.
Yes.
So be grateful for what you have. You have enough.
Yes. Sometimes I think we stop thinking about, we only think about our problems.
Yes.
Exactly. But thank you for, having this very positive conversation, and on such a topic such as cancer. And it's been lovely hearing your journey. It's been so inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I had a great time. I'm really humble and honored to be here.
What really stands out from this conversation is that strength isn't just about enduring hardship. It's about planning beyond it, imagining a full, thriving life, even when the world tells you to focus only on survival today. To everyone listening, ask questions, seek information, and don't be afraid to plan ahead. Your health decisions today are an investment in your tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode of She Does It All. If you liked this episode, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for more such updates.